Thank you very much, Howard Schultz, Rajiv Chandrasekaran. We appreciate your being here. Congratulations on For Love of Country. A word in this book that leaped out at me and I found very memorable. When you were talking about the 2.6 million Americans who've served in Iraq and Afghanistan, you called them volunteers.
Well, one of the unintended consequences of the last 13 years is that we have the best trained military in our history, but it's an all-volunteer force. And the result is there is somewhat of a bifurcation between the American people and the military because only 1% of the American population is engaged in the war. And as a result of that, there's such a giant need to elevate the narrative and the conversation and create more understanding among the American people.
A point that you make in here is that most Americans have no skin in the game.
Well, it's true, but not because they don't want to, but because they are uninformed. And one of the great things that Rajiv and I have seen is that when we are with the American people and start sharing these stories, there's a high degree of empathy and understanding. With regard to the business community, there's also a lack of understanding about the tremendous skill base and leadership qualities that veterans have. We have to persuade small and large business owners around the country to hire veterans. It's great for the economy, it's great for the veteran, and it's great business. I think one of the things we learned is that for so many of veterans and their families, the war begins at home. They've had multiple deployments. It's been hard to transition back to civilian life. With 1 million men and women now coming back to civilian life, it's so important that the American people do not let their sacrifice and their commitment be forgotten. This can't be like Vietnam, where veterans have come home and fallen through the cracks. This has to be an opportunity for us to honor them.
And are we headed that direction?
Well, I think if we don't elevate the conversation and if the American people are not deeply committed to our solemn promise and responsibility to honor them both in war and at home, that could happen.
We can't make the words, "thank you for your service," the end of the conversation. We can't just sort of stand up and applaud at a sporting event and move on. Thank you for your service should be the beginning of the conversation. We want to create a national conversation around veterans, and we want people to make it personal. We want people at the local level, in their communities, in their workplaces, to get to know the men and women who've served in their midst.
Now, you've been responsible for a steady stream of civic projects. We were talking on the way in about Washington, and you were saying part of it is you don't trust Washington. The private sector has to step in.
Well, I think it's clear that we've had over a decade of two administrations now demonstrating a high degree of polarization, dysfunction, that I think anyone in America would say the government has let us down. The American people deserve much better. We have to ask ourselves the rhetorical question, is this the nation we want? And if not, how are we going to move forward? I think the new Congress, coupled with the administration, has a unique opportunity in the next 2 years and certainly in the near term to demonstrate a new level of cooperation. And I think it's time to embrace civility. It's time to embrace the opportunity of demonstrating to the American people a new level of concern.
Rajiv Chandrasekaran, Howard Schultz, thank you for joining us here at Politico.